Hey, Northwest Fencing Center, Coach Mattern here. Today we're gonna be working on the power of the half step. So we're gonna build it up and talk about kind of the concept of the half step, our footwork, and all the permeations that can come off of the power of the half step. Now you'll notice when we do these half step, a lot of the half step movements are done very small. We're really just doing the same thing. The key here is that we really want to focus on the half step being in the context of the advance. The focus is on making sure that it looks exactly like the advance, because most of the time it is exactly what it's going to be. Most of the time you make a half step, you're going to probably continue that movement in seamlessly to create your advance. And after a while, you don't think about making advances, you only think about making half steps and then making decisions. And I make a half step, and then I make a decision to finish that into an advance. And I make a half step, and I make a decision. And I make a half step, and I decide I don't want to go any farther forward, and I come back to my guard position. Or down the road, we can branch that into many different options. Footwork is a fundamental skill in fencing, and we need to be able to change our decisions at a moment's notice. So slowing down and getting these fundamentals down will be one of the most powerful tools you can ever focus on. So first thing we want to talk about when we talk about the power of the half step is our basic footwork. Now, one of the interesting concepts about our footwork is that when we first learn footwork, we learn the advance and the retreat. We get on guard position, we keep our ankles shoulder width apart, we want to keep our knees bent, and we talk about the basic beginning movements, which at this point we all know. And that's the advance, moving forward, or our retreat, stepping back. When you really break it down, the advance and retreat are actually two parts. Advance, two parts. Even though it's one basic movement, front foot, back foot, and we can even practice just that part in our footwork, half step forward. So the power of the half step is that really it's the first step in making an advance. When we make our advance, half step forward, we could pause, stop, and then complete the advance with the back foot. Half step forward, front foot, bring the back foot up, completes the advance. So now we're gonna talk about the half step as a branch on the tree and all the directions it can grow. Half step, back foot, complete the advance. One of the things that we commonly think of when we think of doing our footwork is that we lift the toe. But almost all the time when you are doing a step, you're gonna raise the heel off the ground and come forward. It's just a way of shifting the weight, come down. Now you can come down with your half step going on your toe or from your heel. However you want to do that, there's lots of ways to do your steps. The key is consistency on the sides. We want to keep that nice and small. And when we're looking at this, we're probably thinking about one shoe distance forward. Half step, back. Half step, complete the advance. To give you a reference point of what we're looking for when it comes to how big those steps are going to be. It's a manageable size, I'm not going to lose my balance, and I have a good reference point. And we're going to develop and we're going to branch the movement from our half step, finishing forward, advance, and now we're going to turn this in the opposite direction. We're going to go retreat. Half step back, reset, half step back, complete the retreat. In the beginning, this may be very blocky, and that's all right. Develop the action up, half step back, stop, return, half step back, complete the retreat. We want to become more and more fluid over time. Half step back, reset, on guard, half step back, complete the retreat. When I'm working on my half step back, really want to make sure that we're focusing on our balance. A lot of times we want to think about how am I going to distribute my weight. When I'm making my half step back, I'm going to favor my weight slightly on that front leg. So that way I'm kind of reaching back lightly so that I'm holding here, the half step comes back, and then I'm going to start to shift that weight back on that back foot, okay? I'm gonna be here almost as if I was doing it in slow motion. I'd make my half step back. I'm gonna have to release the weight on that foot to extend the back leg, shift that weight to be able to make a simple retreat. In the same way, I may be doing the same thing, that half step back, start to shift my weight, and then decide I don't want to do that after all. And I come back to my on guard position. Half step back, on guard, half step back, retreat. So I want to really focus on that fluidity and that smoothness of my movement. It's actually more difficult in many ways to do it slow than it is to do it quickly. And that's an important part to practice that. This is one of the nice things about being able to do this type of work as a part of your warm-up routine, at home, on the road. It doesn't take a lot of space to practice these fundamentals, and it's very good for your control and balance. Checkpoint where I have to make that decision. And in this case, I'm gonna make that decision to return to my on guard position, get to my checkpoint, and I complete the advance. And that's the power of the half step, is that I can make decisions in the middle of movement. As opposed to before this, I felt like I had to complete an advance, then make a decision to retreat, make an advance, make a decision to attack. Now I can actually make my decisions mid-step. It's almost like being able, if you were playing music and you only knew how to play whole notes, and now you can play half notes and quarter notes. So you can change the rhythm of the music whenever you feel like it, and in a fencing match, your opponent will eventually start taking advantage of your only being able to make full steps before making a decision or changing the direction, as they're gonna be able to try to find that moment to catch you. So now we have the concept of our half step forward and our half step back. We also think about the word advance, 2 syllables, retreat, 2 syllables. But we think about advance as being 2 parts. Advance and retreat. We're gonna work on that nice and smooth. Advance, continuous saying of the word. Retreat, I could break it down. Add, pause, advance, retreat. It becomes difficult to tell in any of those half steps on the add, whether I'm gonna finish it, advance, or I'm gonna go add, treat, and I'm going to change the direction and escape. And that's exactly what you want to be able to have with your footwork, where you're being able to seamlessly make changes of decision and also throw off your opponent. Add, treat. Okay, treat was the finishing of the reverse step. Add, treat. Re-advance. And these are check steps. Half step back plus advance equals check forward. So now we've seamlessly gone into something that was as simple as advancing and retreating to now an advanced fencing concept. But really, this is something that, again, is a fundamental skill that high-level athletes use all the time. Even beginning athletes start to use this and they don't know what it's called or why they're doing it. It just starts to make sense. When you slow it down and you break it apart, it gives you more opportunities to make decisions, change your distance, and get yourself in and out of jams. Forward, retreat equals check back. So it looks like this. Half step, back, check, back, back, or check, forward, forward. Half retreat, advance, or half advance, retreat. Building them up. But now there are more places that we can add these changes, right? I can go half forward, but what's the second part? Retreat, right? How many parts are in retreat? That's right, 2. So I can start with half forward, and I can start with half back, and I can complete that. Or I can go half forward, then go half back, and then I can finish forward again. And that's our double check steps. So it's just taking that idea of the whole notes to half notes to quarter notes. And now I'm being able to change the tune whenever I want. I can change the direction at more points along the way. Now this is really key. When we're working on this fundamental footwork, on these half steps, this is where the size of the steps makes a huge difference. If I overextend on this half step forward, I can't really make another half step back before I'm so wide, I'm gonna lose my balance and I can't really keep my movement going. So that's where a nice small half step forward can always be completed. Or I can change and I can change again. And that's where we're gonna develop these double check forwards or double check back. Step forward, half step back, advance. Again, fundamentally in the beginning, I'm probably gonna break it down into 4 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Double check forward. When I did a single check forward, I went half step back, advance. 3 parts. Now I'm doing 4. Half forward, half back, forward, forward. Or double check forward. Eventually I want this to all flow and be very smooth. Double check forward, forward. Coach Cody, why do I want to do this? What is the power of the check forward, check back, double check forward, double check back? Great question. When we're focusing on these, we also have to be thinking about when we're moving, what is our opponent doing? They're following the leader. They're trying to keep up with you. So if you think about that, it's almost like I have a little string attached to them. When I retreat, that string pulls them forward and they want to keep that same distance. But when I get too close, it somehow pushes them away. But if I start to make a retreat, and I'm like, wow, every time I retreat, they follow me with an advance. Well, what if I made a half retreat and they started to make the advance and then I changed my direction? That's what I'm gonna use to change the moment and create that opportunity to collapse the distance. We're gonna be using this to catch that moment. This is how we're gonna get single lights. So now I really want to play with them a little bit. I'm going to push them away, then I'm going to pull them back in. I'm going to push them away, I'm going to pull them back in, I'm going to push them in again. And I'm going to create that moment where they don't know what to do. They're trying to keep up with you, and they're getting lost in the moment, and the next thing you know, they're not going anywhere. And that's exactly what you want. You found that way to collapse the necessary distance to make that attack again. Single leg. I can also transform the half step to almost grow into something completely different. Half step, comes back, half step, that never lands. The half step grows into that lunge. If you're looking at, again, watching that video, you see that half step, you see the heel's about to strike, and finishes. And the next half step, the foot's about to strike, and then right before it does, you kick right off, you use that back leg to launch yourself across the room and score that attack. But they thought, it's just another half step that they're gonna recover from. You transformed the half step into an attack. When they thought the half step was only your way of running away from them. No, it was your way of training them to follow you to the other side of the room until you decided to make that action and grow it into your attack. If that is difficult to transform the lunge before the foot strikes, you can always still go into that half step and still keep that movement going in that movement there. So now you're asking Cody, okay, so I can use the half step to make a check forward, a check back, recover back. I can even use it to hide my lunge. What else? One of the other most common things we do, especially in epee fencing, we do a lot of flesh. Okay, I can do the same thing, and I can use that same half step. And what's even better about the half step on a flesh, a lot of times I'm doing a half step, and I'm finishing that advance. But I can do that same half step. We take that same half step, but we keep the movement going. This is where the smoothness of the half step is super important. Our ability to use half steps to conceal movements, and then half steps to maneuver them. So let's think of the ones we've learned today. Which ones can we be using to conceal? The whole idea of that half step being smooth was so that we could transform at any point without our opponent being able to tell. So it's super important when we're practicing these half steps that we try to make that first half of every half step identical. And then it almost conceals everything. But in particular important when we want to hide and conceal those attacks. When we talk about half steps to maneuver our opponent, it's very important to remember this is where we're pulling and pushing and pulling. It's the push, pull. And imagine when you're doing it, even getting your body language into it a little bit. Be loose, be relaxed. Once you get these movements, think about the idea that you're on guard, even if you're at home, and you're thinking, when I advance, I'm pushing them away. When I retreat, I'm pulling them in. Now I'm going half step. They've already started to be pushed, and then I pull, and then I change again. So now I am maneuvering them by pulling them in and then attacking. Or I'm pushing them away and then I'm getting away to further open the distance. And this is how I'm going to maneuver them around the strip to expand the distance or contract the distance to get closer. And this is one of the most powerful skills you can learn, whether you're a beginning fencer just coming in and trying to master it from the very beginning, or a very advanced fencer and you're really trying to fine tune those little moments. This is how you're going to do it. And that's how you're going to get a single light.